From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log. I just want to take a look at a couple of recent headlines because I feel we need to be especially cognizant of the stories that matter and the ones that are just weird or funny or, sometimes it gets a little confusing. Especially in our current media market where many presenters just automatically go for what's the most sensational in the moment, and then they make their headlines even more sensational. Anyway, we won't get into that right now. Just one of my many, many pet peeves. But let's take a look at a couple of stories that I believe really are serious and need our attention. And one, of course, is the Todd Blanche nomination to be Attorney General. He's already acting Attorney General. He's now been approved by the Senate committee. And this is more than just another annoying headline. It tells us that Senators Cornyn and Tillis are punks, never to be taken seriously. I don't know why anybody did take them seriously. The story, of course, is that as acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche was the architect of this so-called settlement in which the federal government, agreed to create this $1.8 billion slush fund in lieu of the $10 billion lawsuit with which Trump was suing his own government. It was all a scam from the very beginning. A federal judge has called it a fraud on the court. Todd Blanche's credentials have been threatened by the bar for taking part in such a scam. And every Republican in the Senate is going to say, okay, no problem, including Cornyn and Tillis, who made the headlines, of course, because they said, oh, well, Blanche won't have our vote unless he puts it in writing, that this slush fund is no more. And I predicted this right from the beginning. Blanche will give in only in the sense that he'll write some bogus document that gives them an excuse to say okay, and everybody with a wink and a nod says, well, we're good now. Because the document that he wrote and signed says no such thing. It's completely pointless and useless. The order establishing the Anti-Weaponization Fund, which is what they called it, is rescinded and shall have no force or effect. Okay, fine. The order, the scam settlement, which never was a settlement, you need two parties to have a settlement. This was one party negotiating with itself. Where is it in this document that they couldn't just do it again tomorrow? Or as soon as he's confirmed by the full Senate? I mean all the Republicans. Yeah, the day after he's confirmed, what's to stop them from just starting a new fund? Well, this isn't the old fund, this is a new fund. Just like, oh, this isn't a war in Iran, it's a new war. We had the first war, and then we had a ceasefire, and now this is a new war. They'll just bend logic to their end anytime they want. So there's nothing in this document that says they can't just do it again. They can't find other ways to pay off violent insurrectionists at $1 million minimum per. The part of the so-called settlement that lets the Orange Menace and his family off the hook for any tax liabilities, still intact. So nothing, literally nothing happened. If you've just seen the headlines on this, and it looks like Cornyn and Tillis got what they wanted, and it looks like Blanche put something in writing, he didn't. Nothing. It's a big nothing. It's the Gene Wilder, Willy Wonka meme. You get nothing. This document is it's so ridiculous. It's like, well, you promised not to rob any more banks and we'll let you out of jail. Well, I'm not currently robbing a bank. Good enough for us. That's the equivalent. Yeah, I'm not currently robbing a bank. It's not, I will not rob a bank. I'm just not doing it currently. Who's to say if I don't do it tomorrow, but. And so all the Republicans are going to be fine with Todd Blanche, even though he committed a fraud on the court. And that's not even to mention that he's also the architect of the whole Epstein cover-up, withholding documents, redacting the ones that were released to within an inch of their lives. The fake interrogation of Ghislaine Maxwell, and then sending her to a little posh, friendly, low-security resort lockup with all sorts of privileges, including a little puppy. Soon to be confirmed permanent Attorney General Todd Blanche, also responsible for, I don't know how many now, dozens of attempted indictments that have been thrown out by grand juries. James Comey, Adam Schiff, Trish James, Mark Kelly, Alyssa Slotkin, others who reminded military personnel that they don't have to follow illegal orders. The guy who threw a sandwich at an ICE agent. David Hearn, the pool guy, the reflective pool guy, all these thrown out with harsh words from all of the judges. Like, what are you doing? You can't bring this garbage to my court. Yeah. Todd Blanche, right dead center of all of this. And the Republican senators are going to confirm him. Yeah, the pool. See, that's another story that I guess seems kind of funny, and I suppose in many ways is. But let's really take a step back here. The Orange Menace and Todd Blanche and everybody taking their orders were perfectly willing to put an innocent man in jail because the Orange Menace doesn't want to be embarrassed by his own screw-up. Even Fox News' Jeanine Pirro, currently U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, had to dismiss the charges. She couldn't bring the case because it was all based on lies. You can lie to the public all you want. You can lie your pants off like they continually do. But you can't lie to a federal judge. It doesn't work that way. So she had no choice. She blamed the Department of Interior and Secretary Doug Burgum and took no responsibility for bringing a completely fraudulent case. These are all impeachable offenses. For all of them. I'm never quite sure who can be impeached and who can't be impeached. I think department secretaries can be. I'm not sure about U.S. attorneys. I'll have to look that up. But the point is, these are terminal, fatal offenses by all of them. Jeanine Pirro, Doug Burgum, anybody taking their orders. And of course, the Orange Menace himself. Every day, just add another item to the articles of impeachment. So yeah, the sandwich guy, the seashells 8647, I suppose it's easy to laugh because they are laughable. But they're deadly serious because they illustrate beyond any doubt how far this fascist authoritarian regime will go. They will harass, arrest, convict, deport, jail anyone they please. You, me, anybody. If it suits them. And if you happen to die in custody, too bad for you. We just had another death at the Dilley Detention Center. A young man, 41 years old, a young father. At least 56 people have died in ICE custody. We don't really know how many. We know of 56 during the Orange Menace second administration. That's only the ones we know about. We know about the ones who are shot to death on the streets of America. But add another at least 56 to those who have died in custody. Thousands of children in the ICE fascist Orange Menace concentration camps. Reports of abuse are rampant. And then another twist to this story. There are now reports, and this was easily predictable this would happen. A driver in Oregon saw police lights behind her, and she pulled over. 3 men, one with a rifle, claiming to be ICE, forced the driver out. She was detained, assaulted, and hospitalized. The assailants were not ICE. They were impersonators. But how would anybody ever know the difference? This was easily foreseeable. Many people predicted this. And now we're having documented cases. Wearing masks, no badges, unmarked vehicles. Oh, but you should just comply, says Mark Wayne Mullen. Says mushmouth Tom Homan, so-called border czar. Yeah, it was just a matter of time. As though the crimes of Gestapo ICE agents aren't bad enough, now we've got these guys. And then one other article of impeachment, another story that gets a couple days headlines, but it's almost impossible for people to keep up these days. Trump Media and Technology Group launched a little project. For the low, low price of $100,000 per month, you can get the Orange Menace's little tweets earlier than everybody else, giving you a leg up on investors. So just overt, flagrant, brazen insider trading. Just announced to the world, try to stop us. With this subscription service, you can have access to federal policies before anybody else knows about them. I mean, we've been seeing this now for a year and a half. Open, shameless manipulation of the market. He just did it again. He just did it again this week. How many times now has he said, and he'll run out Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, out to do the same. They'll announce, we're just a day or two away from a breakthrough, a settlement with Iran. The strait's going to be open tomorrow, maybe the next day, but yeah, very soon. And I'm not quite sure. Somebody who knows more about this than me needs to tell me. Are all these investors that gullible? That's hard to believe. But record highs. Again, this week. Stock market hitting record highs on the news that the threats of annihilation and decapitation are put on hold because an agreement opening the strait is now imminent. How many times has he played this game? At least a half a dozen times, maybe more. And so my question for people who know these things, are investors really that gullible? See, I think I know what the answer is. Of course they're not. But they know how the market's going to respond overall, so they have to get in on it. They're left with no choice. I don't know. The whole thing's crazy. And I just wanted to talk about these particular stories because they're not just weird or funny. They're not just one headline out of 100. They're not just a 24 or 48-hour news cycle. These are serious issues that we need to be aware of, and we need to add them to the list of impeachable offenses. All right. So I'm not sure how long this is going to last. Maybe now through the general election. Maybe even beyond that. Maybe all the way to 2028. But the issue of the day is this very high-profile debate between so-called Democratic Socialists and the Democratic Party. And I just had a couple thoughts today. I've been wrestling with this whole sort of horseshoe populism that we talked about, remember, when left-wing and right-wing populists are starting to find more common ground than they originally realized. And I've had some thoughts that feel kind of transformative in my own thinking. In one way, a conservative or a libertarian might hear me and think that I'm on their team, because I am opposed to more and more glomming on of regulations in this, what I always complain about, this Rube Goldberg sort of system we have. But at the same time, I favor really pretty big, fundamental, revolutionary reform to the system itself. So, well, that seems like big government, especially something like the classic universal health care. So here's where the sort of horseshoe comes into effect. On one end, it looks like one-size-fits-all big government, and I totally cop to that. But I have to say very quickly in the same breath that when I say government, I don't mean what you think I mean. I don't mean an elite class that rules over us. No, when I say government, I mean us. I'm very old-fashioned in this way. Government of, by, and for the people. Democracy. When you define government in those terms, then yes, I'm very happy to have one big across-the-board government system where every healthcare worker, every doctor, every nurse is paid like a public school teacher by the government. And just to be clear, I know that's a terrible system if the government consists of a few ruling elite. So no, if that's how you define government, of course I don't want wide, sweeping government ownership of any service. The prerequisite condition for anything I talk about has to be actual, real democracy. Continuing to shovel regulations on top of a system that's already a bad system, well, that's just throwing good money after bad, to pull out an expression. Or another one, to put lipstick on a pig. It's the system that's bad. To continually, and now I'm defining the Democrats primarily, the Democratic Party, they never question the fundamentals of the systems themselves. They only want to sort of cherry pick and drop in a regulation here and a regulation there, or the Ezra Klein school. You pull regulations to make things easier. You're always fiddling with the system. A terrible, terrible system. So I'm not at all for that. I'm for democracy and for clean, efficient government and clean, efficient systems. Classic sewer socialist. No other group or entity can make that claim. Republicans, conservatives, which is now more confusing than ever, but the classic conservative thing, small government, no regulation, let the free market decide. Well, we've been down that road. We know how that works. And this insane new kind of MAGA government, which is a weird hybrid of whatever the Orange Menace's mood is on any particular day. Sometimes it's deregulate, and then other times it's take over industries. He's more of a communist than anybody he accuses with that charge. But the main thing I don't like is the glommed-on regulations on top of an already bad system. Now it's just whack-a-mole. It continues this arms race between the regulators and the people they're trying to regulate. Nobody likes this, except corporate Democrats for some reason. It's the only weapon in their holster. That's the only way they do things. And we live in this Rube Goldberg world. Corporate Dems are the only ones. Nobody else likes it. I don't like it. Socialists don't like it. Everybody on the other side, MAGA, conservatives, Republicans, they don't like it. But the current fight in this election season that we're in, and we certainly are in, the final primaries of the season and going into the general now, the Republicans and the corporate Dems, they've just got nothing. They have no argument against the rising insurgency of progressives, Justice Democrats, Democratic Socialists. They have no argument. They're relying entirely on this new McCarthyism, this red baiting. It's just fear-mongering. That's all they've got. They're defining their enemy with all these extreme lies. And I'm afraid the voters, a lot of them, are going to fall for it. Democratic voters are already falling for this ridiculous electability argument, which you and I have talked about. Oh, and it sounds so reasonable. Well, purple states, swing states, a lot of conservative folks, a lot of conservative voters, you have to go to the people in the middle. These social democrats, oh, they're not electable. Yeah, it sounds reasonable, but it's a lot of hooey. They don't know that. David Sirota independent journalist David Sirota is doing some very good writing on this. This electability argument is just pure conjecture. It's guesswork. They don't know. I don't know. You don't know who's electable or not electable. It's just a game they play. I can make the exact opposite electability argument. It's easy. It goes like this. Well, you say if you nominate someone who's too progressive or too far left, according to your scale, you'll lose the moderate swing voters, and that's who you really need, especially in these purple states. Kind of makes sense, huh? Well, I can say, for every one moderate swing voter you lose, you're going to gain like 10 new voters, people who haven't voted in years, young voters, all the enthusiasm, all the enthusiastic voters, a lot of low information voters. They just go by feel, by vibe. The Orange Menace got tons of low information voters who just got swept up in the vibe of the whole thing. If you deny the insurgent lefty and nominate the same old moderate, incrementalist, centrist, you're going to lose all of these voters. Not to mention former MAGA voters. Yes, there was a pretty substantial amount of voters in New York who went from voting for the Orange Menace to voting for Zoran Mamdani. There's absolutely an overlap. We knew that back in 2016 when you could see it. There was a Venn diagram, an overlap between Bernie voters and Orange Menace voters. So it's very easy to make the electability argument work for my side. It's easy to make that argument. Now, I could be wrong. I don't think I am, actually. I think it's a good argument. I think it's true. I think the likelihood of my argument being truer than theirs is solid. Yeah, the moderate centrist will maybe get 1 or 2%, I don't know, a very low, don't quite get how they think this is true. Voters who think that the Orange Menace and MAGA has gone a little too far, and so they're going to come back and vote for a centrist Democrat. I suppose there's some voters that you could drop into that category. How many do you think? As opposed to my argument, which says we have a whole untapped reservoir of youth voters, of unenthused voters, of low information voters, of disaffected MAGA voters. I think that makes a lot more sense. So now it's official. The much anticipated race in Michigan, the Democratic nomination for Senate. Abdul El-Sayed has defeated the more moderate candidate, Haley Stevens, only by 1 point. It was close. And so it'll be put to the test now. We have entered the general election, in Michigan at least. Will my theory be proven correct? That the more progressive candidate will generate the enthusiasm needed to beat the Republican in a swing state? Well, we're about to find out. Haley Stevens, the Democrat who lost this race, is saying all the right things so far, that she's going to come together with El-Sayed, campaign with him, campaign for him, encourage all of her voters to do the same. Great, that's how it needs to go. Even after this really tough campaign, and it was, it was. And the money, oh my God, the money. El-Sayed was outspent 11-1. Over $60 million was spent against him. Half of that from AIPAC. And you know, they and all the corporate forces are going to come at El-Sayed with both barrels in this general. It's already begun. It was much closer than a lot of people thought it would be. Some of the polls had El-Sayed up by nearly 20 points. It was only a 1-point win. The early data coming in tells us that younger voters underperformed in Michigan. Okay, are you listening, Wisconsin? We can't let that happen here. In a disappointing headline just today, a Wisconsin poll finds voters view Democratic Socialists unfavorably. But this is what I'm always talking about. They're asking about terms. They're asking about vocabulary, basically. Yeah, the numbers don't look good when you ask the question that way. But it's like, remember, I don't know if they still do this. They used to ask in polls, do you favor the Affordable Care Act? And by wide margins, people said, yes, we love the Affordable Care Act. And they asked in the same poll, do you favor Obamacare? Oh, no, we don't like Obamacare. Well, if you need to be reminded, they're the exact same thing. They're two names for the same thing. So when you ask about labels, when you ask about vocabulary, pollsters, I don't know if you're doing anybody any good. You're just mudding up the waters. And whatever happened to vote blue no matter who, my moderate friends? That's been your mantra for years and years. Well, vote blue no matter who. Okay, moderates, now it's your turn in Michigan and possibly in Wisconsin. We'll see after Tuesday. I mean, we've been doing this for years, those of us left of center, we non-corporate types. We've been holding our nose for years. We didn't want to vote for Hillary. We didn't want Biden. We didn't want Kamala Harris, for God's sakes. But we voted for them. A lot of us knocked on doors. We phone banked. We worked for them. We advocated. I begged people on this program to vote for Kamala Harris. She wasn't my first choice, or my second, or my third, or my 10th. I couldn't stand Kamala Harris. I didn't want Mandela Barnes for Senate a couple of years ago here in Wisconsin, but I voted for him over Ron Johnson. But he lost to Ron frickin' Johnson. Well, of course he did, because Mandela Barnes was a lousy candidate. He was a lousy candidate then. He was a lousy candidate now in this governor's race. I admit I have at times, several times in the past, denounced the concept of vote blue no matter who. After some of these campaigns, I've pulled a Lindsey Graham on you. I've had it. I'm through. I'm done. I'm not going to vote for a Democrat again. I've said it. I admit it. I fully confess. But I always did, every time. I vote blue no matter who. I mean, hell, I'm an anarcho-communist. The whole electoral system is a compromise for me. But I do it because I'm a grown-ass adult. You fight in the primaries. You come together in the general. And then 1 minute after the winner is announced, you get right back to work. Of course, I'd rather have multiple parties. I think third parties should have a chance. But third parties are shut out of the generals. If and when third-party success is possible, I'll be on board. There are some greens in state and local offices. Great. Where it's viable, count me in. But at the federal level, House, Senate, President, voting third party is strictly a statement vote, and I'm not willing to do that. I can't. I'm sorry. James Carville tells DSA to not run in our primaries. No, wrong. DSA, third parties, everybody's been shut out of the system. You're the ones, Democrats, along with your Republican buddies, you're the ones who shut us out. So it's a perfectly legitimate move to run in the Democratic primary, a la Bernie. And then if the voters prefer the DSA candidate, or if they prefer the progressive, well, that's just too bad for you. Respect the voters. So now it's your turn, moderate corporate Democrats in Michigan. Vote blue no matter who. I don't care if you don't like him. Hold your nose. Do what's right. And a final word here, at least for this episode. Wisconsin, here we are. It's the final week. You're on the clock. You've got the nation's attention. Don't blow it. I'm seeing and hearing way too much acrimony. Don't say things, don't write things that we can't take back. Because immediately following the announced winner of the August 11th Wisconsin primary, Democrats, independents, lefties, everybody has to get together to win the governor's race. It's absolutely imperative. And all this over-the-top fear-mongering that I'm seeing about socialism is so ridiculous, and it's making you look foolish and gullible. Francesca Hong's actual policy positions, I bet you can't even name them, are wildly popular with all voters. Yeah, the policy positions themselves are favored by supermajorities of all voters, let alone the Democratic primary voters. Sure, if you ask them about socialism, you get different results. It's the Affordable Health Care Act versus Obamacare situation. Francesca Hong has openly and clearly separated herself from the more so-called extreme positions of the DSA. Hell, the national DSA hasn't even endorsed her. For the love of God, she's no more extreme than FDR's New Deal or LBJ's Great Society. Do you oppose those programs? Hell, she's barely to the left of Dwight Eisenhower, for Christ's sake. So don't say anything you can't take back in the next week. If you prefer another candidate for Wisconsin governor, that's fine. You have every right. Make your positive case for them here in this final week. But please, stop with the alarmist hysteria, the Stop Hong movement. She might very well win. I still think she's going to win. And that's when you have to be a grown-ass adult and get on board. All right. This and all episodes can be heard at the website, charlespurcell.com, or on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks to our flagship terrestrial station, River West Radio in Milwaukee. Follow us on Blue Sky and Substack. Thanks to Peter Donalds, who wrote and performed our theme song. All right, I love you. Go vote.